Hi everyone, my name's Dan Draper and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the content that I'm going to be putting out, including my podcast. Let's get into the videos. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Dan Draper podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Today's guest is an absolute cracker and such an inspirational fella that I've been trying to get on the podcast for such a while, but we're finally here. We've finally got it in the diary, coming towards the end of season 2. Mr. Paul Thompson, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Dan, it's been a long time coming, mate, isn't it? We've been trying to track each other down and get this sorted for quite a while. I know we've both been quite busy, but, mate, I appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast, mate. What you're doing is incredible, you know. And, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a mental health advocate. I advocate for men's mental health predominantly due to my own experiences, growing up since childhood, experiencing and dealing with mental health. And I use my Instagram channel to really get that message out there with my campaigning, if it's my awareness posts, if it's self-care videos, if it's live videos that I do as well on my platform, just to really get men talking, especially as well as women, to break the stigma. And Dan obviously approached me, via Instagram, which, doing this podcast today will hopefully help just somebody who may be struggling out there. And yeah, I still struggle in doing the advocating for mental health. It's therapy for me. And yeah, this is where I am.
Yeah, mate, honestly, and I absolutely love everything on your social media, and we're going to come on to that later on down the line because it's a big talking point and I absolutely love it. But firstly, how are you, mate? We should have rang each other. We're both in black today, but how are you?
You're just missing the hat, mate.
I know. Yeah.
The only reason why I'm wearing hats is because I'm losing my hair, so that's the only reason. Been a good day. It's been quite a warm day in Plymouth, actually, where I am. Dan. It's an incredible city. I'm very lucky and proud to be a Plymouthien. And it's been a really hot day, so I've actually been working today. I've had 2 clients today because I do life coaching, as you know, as a job. So I've been doing that today and just having self-care actually this afternoon. And there's a place called Plymouth Home, which overlooks Plymouth Sound, and just sitting there and having a bit of me time and just relaxing. It was just incredible, actually. And it's been a good day. Yeah, it's been a really good day. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, radio this morning, so an early start, and then cracking on with a few bits for work. And I'm on my lunch break at the minute, if anyone's watching. And then just talking to your lovely self, mate. So yeah, busy day, but really, really looking forward to this chat. So take us back right to the beginning, mate. Where did it all begin for you in your mental health journey?
Yeah, so my mental health struggles started from childhood. I was in a broken home. I lived with my mum who struggled herself with mental health, with depression and anxiety. So being in that environment, being brought up in that environment with a single parent, if you like, was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And to really absorb and be in this environment where I thought it was normal, it really affected me. And, suffering with isolation and having no self-confidence really affected me. And as we know, as children, we need to be blossoming and being nurtured and being loved. And I didn't really have that as a child. So growing up as a child and getting older, I started to realise a little bit more that this wasn't the right environment and something wasn't quite right. Just really comparing myself to other kids at school, coming to the end of primary school and teenage life. And yeah, it started from childhood, Dan, with my experiences and struggles. And yeah, and when I speak to a lot of people and obviously myself, a lot of us do struggle due to childhood. And yeah, to this day, I still struggle, but it's how I deal with it, the triggers and the trauma, especially with the inner child that we all have in us. It started from childhood, pal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so weird that you say that because for me, mine came later on in life. My mental health struggles, but it can happen at any age, can't it? And I mean, for me, I've got younger members of family, and friends that have got kids as well. And I'm now seeing a trend where maybe when we were in school, that you wouldn't be speaking about mental health or anything like that at all. But now they're putting, wellness classes in and being more aware of their emotional intelligence and things like that, which for me is a fantastic step forward. We've still got so much more left to do. But yeah, there's huge leaps and bounds that we've made, isn't there?
There is, and as you know, I do school talks to raise that
Mm,
awareness and give kids that education and awareness. And I know how important it is because when I was at school, there was a lack of awareness, there was a lack of education. Obviously, we all have sex education at schools, and
mm,
we that's always a mandatory thing. But I always say to people and say to myself that mental health is more important and it should be mandatory. It should be workshops and people going into school sharing experiences and really having workshops, breakaways for kids because it's important that kids have that prevention and education. And yeah, when I was at school, mate, it was never talked about in the 90s. It was obviously no internet then either, showing my age a little bit.
mm,
And yeah, there was none. There was no internet. There was no awareness. There was no real um, talk of it. And when I was at school and going into school with my head down and showing signs of struggles and and not being with it, especially in my curriculum, I did stand out, I feel, and I was
mm.
just, I wouldn't say disappointed in my teachers. I don't think that's the word. I was just hoping, really, that my teacher would have reached out and just recognised the signs at the time because there were times I'd come into school with bruises. There'd be times I'd go into school with no hygiene, but also education would be behind because of the environment I was in, pal. And yeah, I just obviously now we touched on it just now about what's in place now for schools, which is a long way to go, but it
Mm.
is getting better, mate. There's a lot of workshops, there's a lot of people going into schools, there's a lot of things obviously online. And I've been to a few schools myself, in the last couple of years where I've done talks and so on. And it's really good to see breakaway rooms and things like that. So
Yeah.
if it's overwhelming for kids and whatever, that they can have that breakaway room. They can have 10 minutes out and have that safe space and just unload a little bit to, a teacher or a teaching assistant or whatever. Because, kids at that age need to have an awareness to handle emotions and know that they can talk and not bottle it up. Because, once you start getting in that situation, it carries on with you in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And something that we spoke about off air was the fact that when you were in school, you were bullied, weren't you? You were bullied in school, just like me. And for me, when I was bullied in school, I didn't really understand how to deal with it because I kind of grew up, as we both did, in the 90s, and it was kind of like, well, oh, just bloody hit him back, it'll be fine, get on with it. But I never resorted to physical violence. I kind of went down the more mental route of just trying to focus all my energy on things like schoolwork and sports and music and things like that to act as a distraction and
Yeah.
never really dealt with the problem of bullying, if you like. And it wasn't until like years later that my bully actually did and came up to me and went, actually, do you know what, mate? I realized that this was going on and it's taken me all these years to actually have the cognizance to turn around and be like, do you know what? Yeah, that was wrong. So tell us about your experience with it.
So yeah, so the bullying was really heartfelt. It hit me in every way, especially emotionally. And for me, at that time, I couldn't understand why people were like that to me because of the environment I was in and no sort of awareness of myself. Really, I was a lost cause. Really, but for me, it was the words more than the physical attacks. And I mean, I got physically attacked at school. I think, a lot of kids did, but
Mm.
I was always attacked after school, and I actually went down my school recently just to have a look around, actually, just to see where all those spots were when I used to hid as a child. But yeah, it was more
Yeah.
the mental side. It was the words that really kicked in for me. And I know obviously that saying with sticks and stones break, don't break bones and all this. And I don't believe in that bollocks, mate. Words fucking hurt. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And for
Yeah.
me, and pardon me French, I'm very passionate about it. For me, it's what hurt the most, Dan. It was the words and what was said. Like my mum was a loner, that I had no chance of achieving in life. I was a scab. I was different. I was a black sheep. All these things hurt because I wanted to
Mm.
do well for myself, even though I had this bad environment with all these obstacles at home and and bullies, I still wanted to do well for myself. I still had it in me with energy and that strength. But for me, having those words, and to this day, mate, it still haunts me. But it's how I deal with it.
Mm.
So I think, answer to your question, it was more what was said more than the physical side that really hurt the most. And I think, looking back now as a 41-year-old male, people sort of don't think about doing it when they're young. You sort of have a bit of I don't know, you don't really have those feelings when you're young, but I didn't do it to others. So I do compare myself a little bit. And I think with bullies, they tend to make themselves better and take it out on other people because they might not be happy or stuff's happened to them at home.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of behaviours behind it. But yeah, it was the words, mate. That was more of the impact, Dan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that that's so important, especially in sort of today's day and age as well, is that words now are far more effective to people because people now are a lot more aware of what they're about. And so for you to have that emotional intelligence, we're going back a few years now, but to have that emotional intelligence at that time is unbelievable. Like the fact that you can then turn around and be like, actually, because for me, most of mine was physical. Like I used to get punched, I used to get this, that, and the other, and there was always words that would come through with it as well. But
Yeah,
sometimes I would just kind of just put it off as banter, or boys being boys, or you're just in school or whatever. But yeah, there were certain points that actually it got a bit too much, and I was like, oh, okay. And then the words started coming, and it just then took me to refocus and reshift,
yeah.
to think about how I deal with my sense of bullying, or being bullied. Sorry, but after that, then, mate, while you were going through school and everything from there, you said to me earlier that you went into foster care. So can you tell us a bit about that and how that kind of changed your life as well?
Yeah, it was a turning point, Dan, actually, going into care. I was chased out of the house by my mum on one summer's
Mm.
day, and she, sort of went mad a little bit. And I was at that age where I wanted to ask questions. I started to get a bit older. I was 13 at the time. I wanted to know where my dad was. I wanted to know why, I wasn't going out to play as much, and started to compare myself to other kids at school, which is human nature. So it just come to a point my mum had enough. She had a breakdown and I got chased out. And luckily enough, my neighbour was in the garden doing some gardening. He saw me in distress, took me in, and then I went through social services. Social services got involved. They obviously tried to do their best to get us back together as a family, me and my mum. That didn't succeed due to my mum's issues at the time. And I actually went into care, mate. I went into foster care. It took about 6 weeks for a long-term placement because of the availability. I actually stayed on a farm for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, in a place called Newton Abbot, which opened my eyes actually, because being in the city and whatever, and all of a sudden I'm in this farm, for the first time, and I'm like, wow, what's going on? And I felt disorientated. I just felt confused and lost what was going on. Felt isolated in many ways
Mm.
because of the environment. But as soon as I got, to meet my foster family, I just felt safe. I felt, welcomed, loved, and it all started to change, mate. I started to have love. I started to have investment, understanding, and patience. And going through the care system and being with my foster family for 5 years really changed everything for me. Everything was fast tracked because I'm absorbing all this new life, if you like, and feelings and whatever. But yeah, it was incredible. I'm still in touch with my foster mum, and family to this day. Unfortunately, my foster dad passed away recently, but yeah, it changed my life. They give me a purpose. They give me a belief that I am good enough. I am capable of doing GCSEs. I am okay. I am normal. And I used to get downed, obviously, at home, but also at school. And started to gain confidence. I started to blossom a bit in every way. If it's my height, if it's my weight, but also in academic and my well-being, with my happiness and confidence and whatever. And they used to have a dog as well called Jade, and
Mm.
she was part of the family, obviously. And Jade was a purpose for me to get out as well. I was in obviously I was in four walls all the time when I was at home with my mum. So being out in the fresh air all the time with my dog was an absolute godsend. And they had a place called
Yeah.
Central Park quite close to where he used to live. And it was just fields and fields, and just having days out with a picnic with my dog at the time was everything to me as well. So yeah, mate, answer to your question, it was a transformation that was so lucky but so needed for me.
Yeah, and do you know what's so lovely? You can tell when you're talking about it how passionate and emotional it is because, for me, I love going home and seeing my dogs. Like I'll go out and walk them with my mum or something like that because that also then gives me a time not only to get out and about, but it gives me a time to reconnect with my mum because obviously where I'm living in London, don't really get to see him as often as I'd like to. Same with my dad. If me and my dad are going out. But yeah, you can really tell that when you were talking about that there was a lot of stuff that you were kind of working out in your own space, and to have your little buddy there with you as well. I love that. I absolutely love that. And like you said as well, the fact that your foster family then brought such a positive influence to you, which then reflected in your grades and your schoolwork and this, that, and the other. It's so inspiring because I think that you can get caught in a bit of a trap with things like that. And sometimes that the social care system can work, sometimes it doesn't work as well. And it sounds like that it really worked for you, mate. So I'm over the moon for you. But you then later on in life, you then moved out and you got yourself a job and you moved out with someone. So do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because this is a lovely story as well.
Yeah, so obviously being in care wasn't going to be forever. And the process with social services at the time was to be in independent living. But before they chucked me out in the big wide world, if you like, I moved into semi-independent living with a guy called Richard, who's still doing the supportive lodgings now, actually, to this day, and still in contact.
Mm,
I moved in with Rich, yeah, around about, what was about 97, I think, I was 17. And it was
mhm,
just amazing because Rich was there for me as guidance. But I had that time, I had my own room, I had access to benefits at the time. I was on benefits because of doing a full time college course. So Rich would be there to advise and encourage on, cooking or basic life skills, if it's doing budgeting with bills and paying bills, bank accounts, all that sort of stuff where again, it was all new to me. Rich will be in the background. He'll let me get on with it, which I did actually, Dan. I just got on with it. I applied for courses and did everything on my own back. But I knew Rich was there in the background just in case. And, Rich was there also emotionally to deal with some counselling stuff. Rich is a full, he's a qualified counsellor and very good at what he does. And there's been a lot of days where we sat down and there's been tears because of still my childhood wasn't really being dealt with and still quite raw despite
mm.
being in a different environment. So yeah, it was amazing. And I got my first job as well through being in that independent living. I got a job in a dockyard, which is a big dockyard naval base in Plymouth, where I spent 15 years service there, or 14, I think. And,
Mm.
if it wasn't for Rich, I don't know if I would have had the confidence. I knew I had confidence at the time, but with Rich's input and, experience and know how, I needed that because I think if I went
Mm.
in the big wide world on my own straight away, I know a lot of kids do now. They're in B&Bs or they're in, there's a lack of accommodation these days with flats and council properties and things like that. A
Mm.
lot of kids fall short because they don't have that basic life skill. I was lucky enough to go through the
Yeah.
process where I had the life skills taught and had the awareness and so on. And yeah, it was brilliant, Dan. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing is, uh, what's so lovely as well is the fact that someone's there to do that for you and help you and support you along the way. Because I feel like, when we were, and again, throwing back to school earlier, you can learn about Pythagoras theorem, you can learn about what's on the periodic table, but you'll never know how to either save money
Yeah,
or how you can get a mortgage or how you just get on in general life and stuff like that. And again, I know schools are now starting to make changes with certain things and all that lot, but nothing really prepares you for the big wide world until you actually get out there. So for someone then to help you out with, applications and jobs and money and stuff like that, unreal, like unreal. And if Rich is watching this or listening to this, Richard, you are a saint, sir. Absolute saint.
he will be watching this as well because he follows a lot what I do, and obviously he's quite proud of not just me but the other lads that have been in his care as well and under his roof. And
Mm,
he's incredible. And when I've done talks with universities as well, I've done a few talks with them, and I'm doing one actually in September when it's Threshers Week. And obviously, when teenagers are going into a new city, or even if they are in the same city and they go into, independent living, some students will struggle, because of the lack of awareness of life skills and isolation, and having that pressure with grades and getting that qualification as well. There's all these sort of credentials really, and I think that's needed. I think with freshers and having people coming in and giving advice on where to go for help, and have just teaching the basic life skills as well if they've not been taught at home. It could be a really good thing for universities and schools. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. And then just to move on, so what was your what would you say that would have been your lowest point at that time? Whether it was from childhood, going through school, getting to the point that you were, like, what would you say would have been your lowest point?
I think my lowest point was when I tried to take my own life, Dan.
Mm,
That was the lowest point of my life. I had a breakdown at 32,
mm,
due to a lot of stuff that was going on, which I just lost control. And I'm a strong guy, but a lot was going on, and I didn't have a lot of support at the time from my employer and whatever. And yeah, it was a lot of bullying at work. It resurfaced a lot of childhood trauma. The inner child was affected, and I didn't really deal with the inner child, even though I went through the care system and I was living with Rich. Everything was fast tracked, mate. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't
mm.
really have a chance to really go into my inner child and heal and reassure the inner child in me. I just embraced everything that was at the present time. But having that breakdown and really going through that process of wanting to take my life, and on 3 occasions in a week, that was the
Wow.
lowest point of my life, and that was the road to recovery, really, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I mean, from what you were saying there about the resurfacing of the bullying and stuff in the workplace
Yeah,
as well, to add on all of the other pressures that are around life at the minute and stuff, like, I can only imagine. And, we've said this before when we were chatting previously, that for me, workplaces that are doing a lot around sort of mental health and well-being, whether it's just a tick box exercise for them to say that they've done it, but there's a lot more that's going into it now. So again, we're on the up with it. But I think that there needs to be more done about how you can assess people's behavior with things like that. Because I think that, if someone gets to that point, like you said there about thinking of taking your own life, we need to kind of look at supporting people who you may notice a behavioral change or something like that, and bringing that to the forefront. And I know that you did that previously after your experience, because you built a charity out, didn't you, to support people in those situations.
yeah. I set up a charity called Males Allowed, which was based actually all around the UK. In the end, it was we reached out to a lot of people, and predominantly it was reaching out to men because of
Mm,
the stigma and the lack of services and support available at the time. And the reason why I set it up is because of my own struggles and the need for a safe space for men to attend a group meet, if it's a walk and talk, if it's a one to one, even if it's a football match, just to accommodate a situation for guys to open up in that environment. Um, and I was reading my local paper at the time of thinking about doing something in my local area, and when I saw two people, you know, taking their own lives, I was really determined to do something and not have this again. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, and I wanted to do something because I knew that could have been me. And
yeah,
yeah, I set it up for that reason and set it up because of the need. And I worked in a male dominated environment where I used to work. It never got talked about with mental health, and there was no mental health first aiders at the time. There was no workshops. There was nothing. There is obviously a lot more going on in employers now with first aiders, and so much more. And obviously, as you know, mental health is talked about even more now.
mm,
But at that time in the noughties, in late nineties, it was unheard of, mate. It was still the dark times.
yeah,
And yeah, and at the time where I set it up, I think it was about 4 years ago. There was still a massive stigma then, and
yeah,
it, we had group meets and we had one or two turn up, but those one and two turned up and we helped somebody, if it was the walk and talk.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the reason why I set it up, mate, because of my own experiences, but also because of the need. And it's great to see what's going on Instagram and Facebook and the internet as a whole. That I see so many support groups popping up all over the place, new charities
yeah,
created, and advocates like you and me doing what we're doing. that wasn't there 10 years ago, and mate, it's
Mm.
only going to get better, isn't it? The amount of people talking and having that domino effect, it's great, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I couldn't agree with you more because I think that, like we were saying, we're moving now in the right direction, that we're actually thinking, you know what, this is a really serious subject that we really need to talk about because we need to get more people involved in it. And especially men, we really need to keep pushing and advocating for it. So how else did you turn it around? Obviously, you've got the charity that came through. But how else did you kind of turn your negative experiences into positives now?
Again, I was in a position where, well, when I did try to take my own life, I was in hospital care, and my employer obviously was on board with it as well. And I was lucky enough to have long-term counselling actually, and I did have counselling previously when I was in my 20s, and I wasn't ready for it then. I
Hmm.
Because of the stigma, because I was thinking that it's just somebody's got problems. I don't need to go. I was a bit manning up about it, and was in denial actually. And when I was in a hospital bed and could see myself thinking, hang on, like, it's got to this point, I started just to accept myself, understand what was
Hmm.
going on myself, and actually talking. So it really started from counselling, having the therapy, having counselling. And I remember being on that bridge where, I did try to take my own life. And I remember a guy come up to me and he sat beside me and he gave me a non judgmental approach. He listened.
Yeah.
He gave me advice. He was patient. All these things that were happening in that sitting was everything I needed. And I burst into tears. And I knew then that, hang on a minute, there are people out there that do listen. And
Yeah.
it is okay to feel like that. So, yeah, that's how it started. It's accepting it, it's understanding it, talking, having long term counselling, having therapy, but also advocating at the same time. So, advocating, doing the charity, talking about everything that I do and what I've been through. It's pure therapy for me because I've got acceptance.
Yeah.
I know there's no stigma in my environment, and yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Absolutely. And do you know what as well? And again, when we were chatting previously before we started recording, there was a certain experience for you that kind of came full circle, wasn't there? About one of the guys that was in the support group. So do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I find this genuinely inspiring and incredible.
Yeah, so we had a closed group on a Facebook page where it was just confidential, so people can join the group and open up and talk and just share stories and whatever. And it's just a support network. And I remember it was close to about 11:30 midnight. I think it was a Tuesday night, and I had a Facebook message from one of the guys in the support group to say that he was ready to go and he's saying his goodbyes. And it was on a video call as well, actually, where I could see the environment he was in. I knew it was the bridge, and it was right. I need to get out there. And I
Mm.
knew just the way he was talking that it was a plan for him. That just a sign stand because I've been in that situation. I knew exactly what he was doing, and he just wanted to say his goodbyes. And I knew I had to go, and I jumped in the car. I had onesies were in the range at the time, and I had a Super Ted onesie, and
No way.
yeah,
I loved Super Ted as a kid. Me and my sisters had it as Betamax as a kid. That's throwing it back.
oh, I thought I was old, mate, but I'm surprised you can remember that. So I got my onesie on, I stuck it on, and I got straight in the car and I went to the bridge where obviously I was contemplating taking my own life, and
Mm,
he was there. He was sat down, and it was quite ironic. It was quite surreal because it was near enough the same spot that I was in, halfway across the
right.
bridge. Because I hate to say it, and I'm in depth when I say this, and it was deeper water then, halfway along the
Mm,
bridge. So horrible to even think and say that, but that's what you do when you have a plan. And
mm,
I remember him being there, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I could see in his eyes there was a relief that I was there, because he knew that there was somebody there for him and listening. And I just sat next to him, and I mirrored what the guy did to me, actually. And do you know what? The way to do it, because how I felt and mirroring the situation, was to just be calm, sit next to the guy, and give him patience and a safe space, no judgment. And I did that. And we sat for about 3 to 4 hours, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And, the ambulance come in the end. I did make the call. And Yeah, I remember spending all night with him, and I was with him at the hospital as well. I called my boss at work and said, "Look, I'm not going to be in today because of what's happened." He was really good about it,
Mm.
and yeah, that's what happens, you know. And I'm in contact with him now. He's in a really good place. He's settled down, and to this day, we still meet up sometimes and have a coffee. And he's still thankful
Yeah,
to this day. And I know for a fact, and I know deep down that he would have gone the full distance because I knew the way he was talking, the plan he had. Yeah, and it was a very, very emotional night. And I'm just
yeah.
glad that I was there for him because I was glad that that person was there for me.
Yeah, and genuinely, mate, that is honestly one of the most inspirational stories I've ever heard. To for you to be in that position previously, and then to save someone like that. And do you know what? I say this all the time, and there's a lot that needs to be done more with mental health, as we've discussed throughout the episode. But the initial conversations that you just have with someone can genuinely save someone's life. Just talking and listening. And it is the most simple thing to do. Just give someone a bit of time a day, and that's it. And you never know how that's going to impact their life. And the fact that you gave, even if you gave half an hour to that fella and you saved his life there, let alone 3 4 hours, and obviously you've got an ongoing relationship from there afterwards, you know it's incredible. It is genuinely incredible what you did for that fella, mate. So congratulations, honestly, because that is unreal.
And you're absolutely right what you say. It doesn't. You don't have to be you don't have to be qualified. You don't have to be doing loads of courses to have that empathy and understanding about if someone's struggling. You know, it's about just being there for somebody and giving them patience, giving them a non-judgmental approach, give them empathy and
Mm,
time, and it's just human nature. It's what we do. We've all got care inside us. We've all got love and feelings. And what would you want in that position? That's what you got to look at as well. I know what I
yeah,
would want in that position, and that's why I mirrored the situation where that guy was there for me on the bridge. And I know there's like mental health first aiders in a lot of places, and it's great that we see a lot of there's a huge rise in that with people doing the courses and getting that qualification. But you don't even have to be a first aider. You just someone that can just have a bit of
yeah,
awareness, and just look at my advice to anybody who's watching this: if you know anybody struggling in the workplace, if they're not performing at work, if they're just seem to be up and down, if they're not turning up to social events and whatever, we all know behaviours in our friends and family. We all know if
mm,
something's not right. So really go with your gut feeling. And ask twice. Ask twice if they're really okay, because that's
yeah,
quite a powerful thing, Dan, as you know. And sometimes we ask the once, "Are you all right, mate?" And they're, "I'm all right," and then that's the end of it. But if you know
yeah,
someone's not quite right, you ask again. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Absolutely, mate. And I think that is so important because usually, and especially guys, we usually have this response of, "Ah, yeah, we're fine, mate." Like we've automatically got this response of, "Ah, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, no worries." You ask again, then you can kind of get scratch the surface a little bit deeper. But I'm guessing that you do a bit of that work with your life coaching. So tell us a bit about like how you got involved in life coaching and what it is that you're up to now.
Yeah. So obviously, COVID hit us all. I was tearing my hair out at home like the rest of us, and I wanted to do something to keep myself sane, I think, more than anything. So I was just perusing online what courses I could do to keep myself going. And there was life coaching and mindfulness coaching, which initially I wanted to do just to help me, actually, just to help my mindset and keep myself sane. So I did those courses. I think it took about 9 months to do. And then I started to look into it, started to get a bit of confidence, obviously, when I got qualified, and started to use Instagram really as a platform and as a business with all the people I've worked with previously, with the charity that are following me now, and just building connections with fellow life coaches and people doing similar work. And I went into the industry really, and I went in there with all guns blazing, and now I work with all men, predominantly all men. I've got 30 people now on my books, which is great. And I enjoy doing it, and it's just about giving people an awareness, encouragement, advice, um, and just helping them in the present time. And I mix it up with mindfulness. I mix it up in a little bit of counselling as well, because people are different. We're all different, so I try and accommodate everybody's needs. And some people don't like being in a library because I book at the library to do my work, or if it's meet in a coffee shop or meet for a walk in the nature. I just accommodate people's needs because nature and our environment, whatever it is so important. And sometimes we're not comfortable talking in an office, we're not comfortable talking
Mm.
in a pub, but they might be comfortable to talk in a coffee shop or a beach or whatever. And every client's different, and that's what I love about it is that all the clients that I have on my books, they all get what I'm sort of doing with them, and having sort of the sessions, and they're really benefiting from it. And mate, I enjoy it. It's giving back, and giving some of my experiences as well, and mixing it up a bit in giving back is you can't buy it, mate. You can't buy that. You can't buy
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah, and do you know what I love as well? And we connected, I'll probably say about, well, it's a few months, if not almost a year ago. And I love watching your lives because, you seem like you've got like a little community of people that will come back onto the lives and they'll be on there and they'll be chatting about, either what's happening on the day, how they're feeling, things like that. But you do these lives so often. I remember when I first added you, and I checked you out because I was like, oh yeah, mental health advocate. I want to see what he's about, see what's going on. And I watched one of your lives and I was like, shit, this guy's the real deal. Like he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's switched on and he knows exactly what's happening here. And it was amazing, mate. So yeah, tell us more about your lives because they're genuinely inspiring.
Yeah, thanks, mate, as well. Thanks for the feedback. It really means a lot. Yeah, I do the lives because of my situation that I live alone and I know I need
Mm.
company and whatever. And for me, doing the lives is beneficial for me. So if it's going to help me, it's going to help others. So I got my motivation doing the lives through lockdown. Actually, I was doing quizzes. I was doing music quizzes, film quizzes. Through the first lockdown, and it was giving me sort of a more of a kick up the ass to do it regularly. I did them with the
Yeah.
Males Allowed charity anyway. I did it via the Facebook platform, via the closed group, but nothing on the scale of being public where anybody can just join who I don't know. So it got me a little bit, it took me a lot of confidence to do that because, like, I had a bit of anxiety that would be new people and I don't know and whatever. But yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of them. I've been doing probably 3 or 4 times a week, and I love to introduce people to the chat and find out a bit about my followers and getting people together. If it's adding each other, talking amongst each other, and we're all in this together. And I think with a live chat, you can do so much in a live chat, and creating the WhatsApp group recently. I mean, the regular sort of people on there, and I've met some amazing people via doing the live chats and Instagram, and I know it's helped me a great deal when I've been alone on my own for
Yeah.
quite a while. And I just think take full advantage of the technology because, especially in lockdown, I don't know what we'd have done without technology, mate.
Yeah. And this is a massive thing because COVID's been horrendous, and it is the worst, one of the worst things that's happened in our lifetime. But the other thing that has come on the flip side of COVID is the loneliness and the fact that we've been separated from people for so long. I know things are starting to open up now, and we're getting back to some sense of quote unquote normality.
Yeah,
But yeah, for the past sort of 18 months to be segregated from friends, family members, people aren't able to have their weddings or attend funerals or things like that, it can be really lonely. And for me, like yourself, I went live for a little while and did something called the Chin Wag Challenge, which I could bring back just to keep people connected during lockdown and just to keep conversations flowing. Because at that point, it was just after Christmas. People at times, depending on what happened, went into tier 4 and they
yeah,
weren't able to see friends or family for Christmas. So it was a way of keeping people connected and going through that and sharing experiences as well. So full props to you, man. It's brilliant what you've done with the platform that you've got. But the last question that I wanted to ask you, mate,
yeah.
is what advice would you give to anyone that has been through a similar experience to you, whether it's to do with your child years, whether it's going through school, workplace, or getting to the point that you said earlier where it comes up to the decision of thinking of taking your own life. Like, what advice could you give to someone in any stage of those?
Yeah, my advice is not to beat yourself up. Don't blame yourself for what's going on because sometimes things are out of our control, and my advice is to talk to people, talk to your partner, talk to your family, talk to your boss at work, speak to your GP if things are overwhelming, or if there's something not sitting pretty in your home life, or in work, and try and challenge it, try and do something about it instead of trying to fight the problem, fight the emotions. And if you're not happy in your job, I know it's easier said than done. If it's a work situation, if you're not happy in your work, try and accommodate that. Try and move to a different office. Try and move jobs if you can, because we spend a lot of long hours in our jobs, and we deserve to be happy. And just try and recognize what's going on. Just have a step back and have a look. Try and not fight your emotions. Having a diagnosis of what's going on, find out what the triggers are, find out why you're feeling this way, and try and identify it. And definitely talk to people. Don't bottle it up. We all know that. But it is easier said than done, I know. And it took me the age of 32 to do it, and I know people are different, but I strongly advise, just don't be afraid to talk, even if it is your boss at work, if your missus, your husband or whatever. Just talking is therapy. Talking is key, and you're not going to feel alone doing it, and you will have a huge sigh of relief.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Paul, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. You genuinely are an inspiration, mate, and I can't wait. I've got the longest bar tab in the world, but we are meeting up for a pint. Absolutely, mate. I'm going to come down to Plymouth because I haven't been down for a little while, so I'll come down and we'll grab a pint, mate. Because you genuinely, from where you started to where you are now, and I know where you're going in the future and how that kind of will work out for you. It is honestly awe-inspiring. So well done, mate. Congratulations.
Oh, mate, honestly, I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate being on this chat, because what you do, mate, bringing people together, talking about experiences, is incredible. What you're doing, mate, getting people to talk and getting people to watch that will learn and get help from this. Give yourself a pat on the back, mate, because you are doing amazing things, and you deserve a lot of credit as well.
Perfect. Mate, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that, because that's essentially what the podcast is about. It's just opening up conversation. So I really appreciate that. Mate, where can we find you? Where's all your social media details, any website details? Where can we find everything Paul Thompson?
So you can check me out on Instagram. Feel free to give me a follow. It's Paul Thompson Official. It's a public account, so feel free to check out my content, join in with the live videos. And also, I've got a clothing page as well via Instagram called Wearing Out the Stigma, where it's a registered partner with the Samaritans above board, where 10% of all sales go to the Samaritans. And already, I think I've sold about 135 hoodies. I've sold about 30 t-shirts, and
Wow.
some of the t-shirts and hoodies will have the Ask Twice hashtag. It's okay not to be okay. The green ribbon, which represents obviously mental health, and that's a project that I'm doing on the side. And it's just gratitude, and I want to give back to the Samaritans, because they were there for me when I was struggling. So yeah, feel free to check me out, guys. Feel free to check out the pages, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Brilliant. Paul, thank you so much, mate. I know that this has been delayed for a little while, but it has been so worth it to chat to you. And thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Honestly, it's been a long time coming, but well worth it.
Well worth it. Thank you so much, mate. See you again soon.
Take care, pal.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.